Chapter 20 Journey Home.
The weather is on our side, so should be back to St Bethanie in no time. Thought you might be hungry after a hard day's work. So the wife knocked you up some sandwiches, etc. You already know where the stuff is for a brew.
Thanks, Derek, you're a lifesaver. Anyone else fancies a drink?
Sounds like a plan to me, Steve. You volunteering?
No problem, George. I will be your bitch for the trip. Abby was inside the cabin, sitting in one corner, staring out the window in her own little world. You okay? Abby gave a small nod as an acknowledgement she was okay. All will be fine. Everything will turn out for the better. Best you stay away from St. Halb for a few weeks to be safe.
What about Sam? I killed him. Surely the police will come looking for me. I don't want to go to prison.
That is not how the boys, and I understand what happened. Positive, he was caught up in the crossfire by our drug-dealing friends. Last time we spoke, you were back at your place cleaning up the mess from a burglary.
Thank you so much. Just not sure where to go from here.
That's an easy one. Give us a hand with the brews before the gents in the back start moaning. Raising out of her seat, Abby walked over and grabbed the tray, loaded it with an assortment of sandwiches, and followed me to the stern. There you go, you lazy gits. What more does a person want but a brew and a sarnie after a long day at the office? Must have been about an hour before we sighted St. Bethanie emerging over the horizon. The plan after reaching the port was to make our way directly to the airport and take the next available flight back to the UK. Already had return tickets, but due to our plans being altered, we would need to leave one day early. Would need to use our charms and blag our way onto an earlier flight. Let us hope Edward and his gang were nowhere to be seen and not discover the young man buried in the woods. Any comeback from the explosion on the dock when we left, Derek?
Funny you should say that the police arrested 4 men from the island, part of the underbelly I told you about. They swear blind they were not involved in any explosion anywhere on the island. Of course, the constabulary did not believe them. Wonder who could have planted such a device.
He turns around and smiled at the three of us.
Who, indeed?
Any chance of you giving us a lift to the airport? Our usual driver might be unavailable.
Fine by me. We'll need to pop home first to collect the car and make sure the wife is okay. What are you doing about the young lady? If you need somewhere for her to stay, she is more than welcome to stay with us for a while.
Cheers. I will ask Abby what she wants to do. We may have a greeting party, Simon. Grab the binoculars and see who is eager to find out if we arrived okay.
Your friend, the taxi driver, Edward, is the man at the end of the pier. Another 3 men stood behind him, and another one is over on the other dock. Can't tell if there were any more at the moment, but more will be around, I guess.
Appears we are going in hot. Check your weapons. George took up a sniper position in the cabin and through the window with the LMG. Don't shoot unless you need to, or you hear me shout fire. Go inside and stay there until I give you the all clear, Abby. We gracefully touched the marina a few minutes later. More men stood on the opposite pier, looking in our direction and fully armed. Edward and his goons were making their way along the dock to meet us. Waited until he was close and threw him the painter line to tie up the boat. This was a twofold reason. First, to ensure he did not have a weapon in his hand. The other, we needed to secure the vessel, and might as well put him to use as he stood there doing nothing. Hi, Edward. Lovely to see you. We don't need a taxi today. Derek here is providing us with a lift back to the hotel.
Stop fucking about. You know why I'm here. Do you have anything to do with the death of my nephew I sent to follow you a week or so ago? More importantly, word got back to me you are responsible for the interruption of my supply chain from St. Halb.
Need to keep him talking while Simon slipped tenderly without a sound over the side and into the water. Worked with him a long time now, so could second guess he was going to sneak past them and surface behind and slightly to one side of them. Not us, mate. Been doing some rest and recuperation and a little sea fishing with Derek here. Out of the corner of my eye spotted the men on the other dock raising their weapons, ready to fire. No need to worry about these people. They were being covered by Derek, who now had one of the rifles trained on them from a firing position.
Enough of the games, Steve. You and your friends will be coming with us.
One moment, let me ask them. Gents, anyone want to go with Edward? Sorry, they said no. At the end of the pier, I observed Simon climb out of the water, taking up a position behind the last boat. His rifle was in the aim, ready for me to give the command. Final check to ensure everyone was in place. My task was to jump out of the fucking way as I was unarmed. Fire! The sound of instantaneous gunfire reverberated from 3 directions around the dock, matched only by the curtained screams of men taking their last mortal breath. Took the 9mm Browning and headed to where Edward was now lying on the floor. Thick red blood dripping through the gaps in the planks. His eyes gazed upwards towards the heavens. As I approached, he tried to say something, as he was in the last throes of life. Couldn't afford to leave anyone alive that could come after us later. Aimed the 9mm at his head and fired. At least I had given him a quick death and not left him to suffer, or thrown him in the water to drown. This was out of courtesy, as I liked the man. Over on the other pier, 3 single shots could be heard as Simon ensured the others would be joining Edward. After collecting all the bodies, placed them in a small dinghy. Made several small holes in the hull and pushed it out to sea. The tide was leaving the harbor, helped by the wind gently blowing from the shore. The boat should sink some way offshore. With any luck, we shall be well away from this area. The only concern was for Derek and Abby. Think we better make a move before some nosy bastard arrives poking around and asking questions about the gunfire. You can come out now, Abby. We need to make our way to Derek's place. Tucked my 9mm into the rear of my trousers and the rifle in a green refuge bag along with the rest of the weapons. The plan was to keep them with us until we arrived at the airport. Then hand them over to Derek to hold, in case we ever came back this way. Could not see anyone in the vicinity apart from some people in the distance. They would, without a doubt, have overheard the firing, but they were too far away to be able to recognize any of us, so not an issue for now. Arrived at the Zoom Kustal about 18 minutes later, proceeding inside and taking a seat at one of the tables.
Give us 10, and I will be with you. Help yourself to a beer if you want one.
Cheers, bottle or draft, gents. While Derek is away, this is the plan from here to landing back in Heathrow. No point in playing silly buggers anymore. The rifles will be transported in the car with us in case any of Edward's gang is still looking for a fight. We will pull the vehicle up short of the airport, where we will stash the weapons in a hide for Derek to collect later. The last thing we needed is some fresh-faced police person to choose today to prove himself and inspect the vehicle. Once inside the departures lounge, pick on the nearest airline staff member sitting behind the check-in desk and showing signs of being bored and having a bad day. So doesn't give a shit. Then with charm and finesse, try to blag an early trip home, so you 2 ugly bastards bring a smile. Turning back to face Abby. Before we leave to head back to the UK, not sure if you have made any plans yet of what you are going to do next. But Derek offered for you to stay with them until things quiet down.
That would be wonderful, Steve. One slight problem is that all my money is at my place on St Helb, so I can't pay him.
Doesn't want any, but here's a little something to tide you over. Just in case I forget, here is a gift for the future, a bottle of Domaine de la Romanée Grand Cru. An overpriced wine I personally rescued from Henry's safe. Must go for anywhere between 19,700 to 551,314, according to the search I did on my mobile. The greedy git Henry had 4 of them. No, don't feel guilty taking them, more likely than not paid for with drug money.
Wow, not sure what to say, Steve.
Thanks, not required. You can buy us all a drink later. Do not panic, boys, have our retirement funds safely packed securely away. Derek went upstairs, returning a few moments later with a woman in her early 50s and about 5 foot 5 inches with long brown hair.
Let me introduce Claire.
Delighted to meet you. That's Simon and George, and the young lady is Abby, and I'm Steve.
Come with me, Abby. Let the men carry on with whatever they were doing.
Handed over one of the bottles of wines to Derek. This is for you, mate, and thanks for all you've done. I wouldn't put it behind the bar if I were you. Far too expensive for the locals. The first part of the trip to the airport went without any hassle, weapons stashed for easy pickup later once things calmed down a bit. The same can't be said when entering the ring road. Local police must know about the shooting at the docks and are carrying a checkpoint, looking for someone to blame. Erring on the side of caution, we still had with us the 3 9mm. Reminds me of the time in Northern Ireland when I stumbled across the ambush. Slipped my Browning under my arse away from prying eyes, hoping they do not ask us to get out of the vehicle. No need to turn around. The others would be doing the same. Took my passport out of my pocket, placing it on my knees, ready. Shit, the occupants of 2 cars, further along, had disembarked and were now standing with both hands placed on their heads. One copper was gesturing with his gun for the men to stand away from the vehicle. Okay, deep breath, gents, we are in. Flashbacks came flooding back, and sweat started to run slowly down my spine. Once the car came to a complete stop, grasped the handle of the 9mm with my right hand, the open passport with the other as Derek lowered the windows. Afternoon, officer. Something happened on the island we've not heard about, or is this normal practice? True professionals might have picked up the slight uneasy edge to my voice.
Where you off to, gentlemen?
Home. We have spent a couple of weeks exploring your beautiful island.
Passports.
The officer gave our documents a quick check. He must have been satisfied as he waved us on without another word. That was fucking close, gents. Departures were a few minutes away from where Derek dropped us off. Inside was buzzing with the movement of people as they hurried through check-in and customs. The British Airways desks were located at the far end of the hall, past the multiple coffee outlets selling overpriced drinks to weary travelers. A collection of gift shops were busy trying to prize the last of the people's holiday money before they boarded their flights to all corners of the world. A small group of people were inching their way through the maze of sheep pens to speak to someone and collect boarding passes. Stood off to observe for a while before picking up on a young man sitting behind the business class desk, who didn't look like he was having a good day. He would be the target. With all the added security going on, we could not afford to spend another night here, so important we go today. Hi, sir. Looks like we are not the only ones having a bad day.
Just one of them days, I suppose, but I am fine. Thanks for inquiring. How can I help?
Need to rearrange our flights from tomorrow to tonight, an emergency back in the UK. Any chance you could change the flight?
Let me take a look at your tickets.
After a few minutes of tapping away on his keyboard and looking at the monitor.
Have both bad and good news, gents. Business and economy classes are entirely booked for tonight. However, I have room in first.
Okay, thanks for trying. We had the money to afford first class, but I was still trying to grab a free upgrade.
There is some good news for you as well, gents. Here are 3 upgraded seats to first class, courtesy of British Airways. Always pays to be polite. Enjoy your flight.
The plane doesn't leave for 4 hours, boys. If you're anything like me could do with a decent meal. Anyone for a mixed grill once we exit through customs? Slipping past customs, this end was a breeze as they are only interested in what you might be carrying onto the aircraft. Not who you are or where you may be heading. The intense part is once you arrive, and need to pass through both immigration and passport control. We all held electronic passports, so would enter via the automatic gates. With a bit of luck, nothing about our exploits had reached the UK, so it should be plain sailing straight through. We would all be able to relax from then on. Then there was the small matter of collecting the remainder of our fee from Henry. The departure was comparable to what you would find at most international airports. Once your gate number was displayed, made your way to the gate to be confronted with another check of passport and boarding pass before being ushered to another waiting area. A mixture of holidaymakers and business people now filled the space, all trying to be the first one on the aircraft and the all-important battle of the overhead lockers. The majority of people are not aware that the plane doesn't have enough storage if everyone boarded with a carry-on bag. First-class travel on a flight was a unique experience for most people, from the over-intensive crew to the lavish meals served whenever you wanted, far away from the feeding frenzy in cattle class at the rear of the airplane. Besides us 3, There were only 2 other people on the opposite side, so plenty of room. Managed to stay awake for the safety brief, unlike Simon, who was horizontal on the lay-flat bed. Looked over to George, who was making the most of the opportunity with a table laid out similar to what you would find in any 5-star restaurant, complete with several glasses of champagne. Think I will have some of that and call over Lorna, the same stewardess I had on the way over. Things seemed to be running too smoothly, as we had no delays at either immigration or passport control and soon found ourselves with luggage in the arrivals hall. Make contact with Henry, Simon, and arrange a meeting. Might as well complete the mission today as we are in London.
Sure.
After 5 unsuccessful attempts.
He is not answering. We'll try again in a few minutes.
Do you know where his office is?
Yeah, it is not far from where we met him in the pub a few weeks back.
In that case, let's make our way there while you keep trying. He owes us $250,000. If we catch the Heathrow Express to Paddington, we can take a cab from there to the coffee shop where George and I met up with you in the Boozer. A short 15 minutes train ride followed by a 20-minute taxi journey due to the traffic in London always being terrible. No matter what they do to try to improve the flow of vehicles. The cafe was virtually empty, so took up the seats we had occupied previously near the window overlooking the public house across the street. Only been there for a short time when Simon's phone rang. Was that Henry?
Yes, he says he will meet us across the road approximately half an hour from now.
Hope he brings the rest of our money, or the bastard can go back and fetch it. Look down at my watch. The arsehole is late. What's keeping him? At that moment George gave me a nudge.
Appears like he's turned up with the goon he was with last time.
Watched as he took up a seat inside the pub for some reason. He sat on his own, so where was the bloke he went in with? Waited another couple of minutes before crossing over the road and entering. The hired help was spotted on the other side of the room, facing Henry. George, go and keep him company while we have a chat with our friend, in case he tries anything stupid. Took up a position on either side of Henry, so he couldn't get out from behind the table.
Hello, gents. Nice to meet you all again.
Shall we cut out all the bullshit? We know the real reason you sent us there, which was nothing with removing any local thugs. Spoke to a few people while we were there. And seems like you ran this little enterprise with Hadley, and you wanted him eliminated, correct?
So what are you 3 going to do about it?
Nothing, Henry. We completed your mission, and they are now all gone. Pay us what you owe us, and we will be on our way.
Do not have the money on my person. I need to go back to my office and take it from the safe. Will take time.
Don't play games with us, Henry. You have exactly 1 hour to collect the money and be back here. Been in this game far too long to actually still be sitting here waiting for him and any other thugs he decides to come back with, along with a few nasty surprises. Once he had left, we would follow him at a discreet distance to the office. Then at some point, invite Henry down some dark alley. Depending on his actions, he may not come back out. For our own security, George stayed behind for a few minutes after we departed to follow Henry in case someone else had the notion of repaying the gesture. Turned left when leaving the Boozer and walked down a local high street with shops, cafes, and banks of multiple descriptions lining the edge of the newly pedestrianized area. Running down the middle, people were seated on benches chatting with friends or watching the performance of street buskers of varying levels of skills. Others were loaded down with heavy bags and went about their daily business of shopping. Business people with drinks in one hand and mobiles held to their heads hurried about the place. Made my way down one side, with Simon taking the other side of the street. Both kept a close eye on him, now 100 meters in front of me and ambling along as he talked on the telephone. Momentarily stopping on numerous occasions to check around to see if anyone was following. Every time he did, I would instinctively turn to pretend to be window shopping, preferably with some unexpected shopper between him and me. Something I learned the hard way was to try to stop in front of the same type of shop each time. Far better than looking at an electrical store 1 minute followed by a sports shop the next. Would be surprised how much a beating focuses the mind. Situated on the end of the high street was a tall glass-fronted office building. Counting the windows must have been about 20 stories. Placing the phone back into his jacket pocket, Henry entered via the front revolving doors. Ideally, situated opposite the main exit were several metal benches, but this would be taking too much of a risk. For any reason, Henry looked out of the window. We might be spotted. Instead, located myself a bit further down the street among other happy shoppers. Sat on a bench, pretending to read a leaflet I just collected from one of those annoying people trying to part you with your hard-earned cash, but with a full view of the exit. From the seats behind.
He is in the building. Shall I check the rear in case the building has another exit point?
Good idea, Simon. I'll give you a missed call if he comes this way and vice versa if he comes your way. At that moment, George took up position next to me.
Doesn't look like he had anyone follow us. The hired help went off in the opposite direction.
Give him no more than 30 minutes to come out, or we will have to go in and find the bastard. Time was nearly up when Henry emerged from the office, heading down the high street, in the opposite direction from the agreed meeting point. What's he up to? Gave a missed call to Simon, who came legging it around the corner, knocking Henry to the floor, and stunning him for a few seconds. Once he realized it was us, picked himself up and sprinted down one of the side streets. The first mistake, as this was an alley with no way out apart from the way he came, which was now blocked. Grab him, boys. Let's see what the dickhead has to say. Taking one arm each and slamming him hard against the brick wall. I planted my fist into the side of his head, so he knew the time for being polite was now over. Not thinking of bailing on us, were you?
No, I was on my way to the bank, honest.
Now we have a problem, Henry. I fucking don't believe you. As I slammed my fist as hard as I could into his gut, forcing him to flinch in excruciating pain. Money.
It is in my bag, let me go, and I will remove the envelopes containing the money for you.
Another blow landed in the center of his face, resulting in streams of blood running down his face. That's for fucking lying. Reached down and grabbed the small brown leather bag he had been carrying, which was lying on the floor by his feet. Inside was a stack of 50-pound notes. Keep hold of the arsehole tightly, boys, while I check the money. All there. What shall we do with this idiot?
Think we should let the arsehole live, for now. He may come in useful in the future.
Must be your lucky day, Henry. You stay alive. But remember, we will be watching you, in the slightest issue, and you will be a dead man walking. Gave him one more good smack to ensure he got the message. Once George and Simon realized their firm grip on him, he slumped down to the floor and curled up, clutching at his stomach with both hands. Sobbing uncontrollably as agonizing pain flowed throughout his body. Turned and went to walk out of the alley and back down the high street. When for some unknown reason, I turned back for one last glance at the figure curled up on the floor. We had made a rookie mistake and not checked for any weapons. Henry was staggering to his feet with a 9mm in his right hand. Unconsciously, I ran towards the danger, closely followed by the other two, as the characteristic sound of a crack as the bullet left the barrel echoing as it flew past. Striking him hard with the full force of my body, knocked him to the ground. A split second later, Simon had wrestled the pistol from his hand and now had the dangerous end resting squarely on the side of the man's head. Only managed to get the word "what" out when the trigger was pulled. Not stupid enough to leave the weapon anywhere for the police to discover, I would dispose out at sea in a few days. Leaving the alley, we made our way through the crowded high street to Paddington Station and boarded the first available train out of London in the direction of Kent. From here, we would double back on ourselves and head for home. The carriage was empty, apart from a few people seated towards the far end. Made the decision not to stop at the ticket office, as the majority of these now have cameras watching the person selling you a ticket. Partly for their safety and part making sure they do not rip off the company. Would purchase ours from the guard as they came through, with the excuse the train was about to leave. The truth was, didn't fancy being caught on camera. Waited for several minutes after we pulled away from the platform to ensure nobody would pass us looking for a seat, before discussing the next move. Make sure once you arrive home you burn what you're wearing, have a cold shower before soaping yourself down with pumice soap. This should remove any leftover gun residue from Henry's pistol. Would suggest once the train arrives at our stop, we go our separate ways and meet up again at Simon's place in 4 days from now.
Sounds good to me. What about the dosh?
Give it all to Simon. We can divide everything equally then. About an hour later, the carriage pulled into the final stop. Disembarking into a crowded platform, pushed and shoved our way to the exit. Said our farewells, and I headed home. Feeling exhausted after the last few weeks, either that or downright lazy. Decided to take a taxi home rather than walk the hour or so back. Now was not the time to relax yet. Knew about too many missions that failed on the final hurdle. After placing my Bergen near the door, took an amble around the area, checking for any new signs of activity. A last check of the hair I had placed between the door and frame, the seal had been broken, and someone had been inside. Picked up the small metal bar I always kept hidden in the bushes for just such an emergency. Inserted the key and quietly pulled the door open, with my right hand holding the bar, ready to meet any assailants who might still be inside. Moved from each room, in turn, couldn't find anyone, and nothing looked disturbed from the way I had left it. Was about to go back outside to grab my bag when I noticed the note on the side. The park's maintenance team had been inside to check the gas supply. Couldn't be arsed to do any washing. That could wait until tomorrow. Time for a brew and a check on the news to see if anyone had found our friend, Henry. Plus, more importantly, do they have any suspects? They say no news is good news. Was about to make another coffee when the bloody phone started to make like a canary and sing its fucking head off in the kitchen. Now who the hell can that be? I've only just reached home. Better answer it hopefully. It will be the arseholes from the council, so I can tell them where they can do one it wasn't.
Steve, it's Simon, a friend of mine got a job we might be interested in.